back pickup.
Right.
Tonight, Human Touch is the title cut to one of two Springsteen albums. While the video's out, the albums won't be at local record stores until March 31st. And that's tonight's Entertainment Report.
And it's that good. Let's take a last look at the weather.
All right, let's take a look at it. Looks like lots of sunshine tomorrow. We'll hit about 67 for a high temperature. Thanks, Jim.
And that's our news, everybody. Thanks for being with us.
The House of Representatives, where legislators are busy passing laws and spending billions of dollars of taxpayers' money. But when it comes to spending their own money, members of Congress used to have a great deal. Their own bank, where for years many wrote checks for a lot more money than they had in their accounts. More than 300 House members wrote bad checks totaling millions of dollars. And now some congressmen are trying to keep you from finding out who the check bouncers are.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Wallace.
Just when you think Congress's standing with the American people couldn't get much lower, it always does. Whether it's late-night pay raises or parking tickets that are fixed, free health clubs or $5 haircuts, the politicians on Capitol Hill keep acting as if they're different from all the rest of us. And the voters back home keep getting angrier. Now, another scandal is reaching its climax. Over the past 3 years, congressmen have written almost 20,000 bad checks, overdrawing their accounts in the House bank. But those checks didn't bounce. They weren't returned for insufficient funds as ours would have been. No, the House bank paid the money as a kind of interest-free loan until the congressmen made good on their accounts. To add to the controversy, this week the House is expected to approve an ethics committee plan to name only the 24 worst offenders. More than 300 other current and former members of Congress would not be identified. According to some Republicans, it's a cover-up. As Nightline's Jackie Judd reports now, the mood on Capitol Hill seems to be to protect the members from the people who elected them.
Imagine writing someone a bad check and doing it time after time after time and getting away with it. No penalties, no threats of closing your account. That's exactly what many House members did in the 3 years before their private bank closed last October amid controversy and voter anger.
I think it's reprehensible. These are our elected officials who we have chosen to represent us and do for us what we as individuals can't do. And they are going ahead and doing just the things that they're telling us we shouldn't do.
The banking scandal was the last straw for a lot of people who already were disgusted with Congress for its middle-of-the-night pay raise, for its perks of fixed parking tickets and free lunches at congressional restaurants.
What we have is a system here that is decayed and corrupt, and we need to do something about it.
What had the congressman so upset was a report by a House Ethics Subcommittee. It had spent the past 5 months investigating the bank accounts of House members. Among its findings, 296 current House members had bounced checks. 200 overdrew more than their next paycheck would cover, and 24 current and former members overdrew their monthly salaries at least 8 times since 1988. Nightline has been told by a committee member that the worst abuser wrote about 1,000 bad checks for some $500,000. Congressman Matthew McHugh led the House probe.
It's a case of members not taking care of their own personal checking accounts in any sensible way. I don't know how members actually could sleep at night given the disarray in which their checking accounts in some cases were.
Still, the House Ethics Committee seems intent on furthering Congress's image as an arrogant, privileged class. It voted to disclose only the names of the very worst abusers, those 24 who went over their limit at least 8 times. McHugh says to make a broader accounting would violate a member's right to privacy. And besides, he says, the House bank wasn't really a bank at all.
No, I think it is important that we not retroactively apply standards on people because there's political heat. This was a bank in which only the money of members of the House was involved. Only their salaries and other deposits were in this bank. It was a bank which tolerated for more than 40 years overdrafts of accounts, so long as those overdrafts did not result in a deficiency which exceeded the next month's net pay deposit. And there was never any money lost in this bank.
It is true that this is not a bank in the classical sense of the word. But that very point, I think, is what sticks in the craw of some of our constituents. This is yet another special privilege for members of Congress. Well, it really wasn't all that special. It was a place to deposit your monthly paycheck and to be able to write checks on it.
The resolution that was approved by the Ethics Committee is to disclose just the 19 people.
Right. The newspaper Roll Call broke the check-kiting story last year. Its editor calls the committee's solution of limited disclosure a poor attempt at damage control.
Part of the idea, and there's no doubt in my mind, is to find some scapegoat, sort of throw them over the side, and then hope that nobody's going to get upset about anybody else. Well, you know, I would almost go along with this idea, sort of sacrificing some people who probably shouldn't be sacrificed, if it really helped the institution. I mean, I could buy that idea, but it's not going to work anyway.
A group of freshman Republicans smelling a chance to embarrass the Democratic leadership, which poo-pooed the scandal when it broke, is demanding full disclosure. They say too many people will get off the hook using the committee's narrow definition of abuse.
The majority of the committee used an arbitrary standard which resulted in 24 people being designated as having abused their banking privileges. People who escaped that designation wrote over 850 bad checks, totaling over $150,000. There were other examples of members writing 500, 700 bad checks, over $100,000. And I can't defend that conduct as not being abusive of the banking privileges.
If this institution is going to be relevant in American society, we've got to be able to level with the people who sent us here and show them that we're willing to stand up and behave as they expect us to behave.
A bitter fight is expected this week on the House floor about how many members should be exposed and in what manner. Glassman says he's never seen elected officials so scared.
It's indefensible from a political point of view. You can defend the pay raise. That's not hard. You know, you can get out there like Rostenkowski said, and said, you know, damn it, I'm worth $125,000. If you don't think I'm worth that, then vote me out of office. But you can't get up and say, damn it, I bounced 20 checks, so what? I'm a member of Congress. I mean, you can't say that. What are you going to say?
One way or another, many incumbents will have to stand the heat this fall. In an election year where voters have made clear that they won't accept politics as usual, the House is faced with the choice of naming names or appearing to favor a cover-up. This is Jackie Judd for Nightline in Washington.
When we come back, we'll talk with the acting chairman of the House Ethics Committee, Congressman Matthew McHugh, with former Senator William Proxmire, a longtime watchdog of government spending, who calls the check-bouncing scandal a disgrace, and Boston Globe columnist Mike Barnicle, who says Congress is just a pack of deadbeats.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer.
Ford Customer Assistance Center. How may I help you?
One automobile manufacturer values their relationship with customers so much that they created a department which assists over 4,000 people a day with questions on everything from warranties to how to program a keyless entry system.
5 digits for your personal.
At Ford Motor Company, we don't just build quality cars and trucks. We build relationships.
Well, it's important to us that you're happy with your car. Thanks for calling Ford.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working. It's working.
My company came to me, and they suggested, strongly, not just suggested, that I seek assistance. I thought it was to fire me. And instead, they gave me an opportunity to save my life.
It's deer season at Clark County Equipment in Vancouver and Stark Street Lawn and Garden Equipment in Portland. Your local John Deere dealer is now offering big savings on assorted riding mowers, lawn tractors, and walk-behinds. Ask about their 30-day money-back guarantee and 90 days same-as cash plan. Bring home a real trophy this deer season from Clark County Equipment and Stark Street Lawn and Garden Equipment, because nothing runs like a deer.
It's deer season at Clark County Equipment in Vancouver. and at Stark Street Lawn and Garden Equipment in Portland through May 31st.
Not every bird you see at your grocery store is a fresh Oregon-grown chicken. Some are out-of-state birds, which come from thousands of miles away. To make the trip, they may be frozen solid, then days later left to thaw and labeled fresh, right alongside Oregon fryers, which can go from farm to store in just one day. So for the freshest chicken, look for the Grown in Oregon label. Without it, you could be getting a totally different breed of bird.
5 men want to live in this house. There's only room for one. Watch Peter Jennings, David Brinkley, and the people of ABC News Super Tuesday.
Joining us now from our Washington studios are Congressman Matthew McHugh, a Democrat from New York who is the acting chairman of the House Ethics Committee, and former Senator William Proxmire, who spent much of 3 decades in the Senate spotlighting government waste, and from our Boston bureau, Boston Globe columnist Mike Barnicle. Congressman, let me start with you if I can. Speaker Foley predicted today that when the House votes this week, it will vote to approve the Ethics Committee plan to name only the 24 worst offenders. I have to say, I still don't get it. Why is it that voters aren't entitled to know how many bad checks their congressman wrote and for how much?
Well, first, Chris, let me say I'm not here to defend these banking practices, and I personally did not write any bad checks. But as chairman of the Ethics Committee for this investigation, I was bound to follow the House resolution, which was passed 390 to 8 last October. And that resolution directed us on the Ethics Committee to determine who abused their banking privileges by repeatedly and routinely overdrafting their accounts by a significant amount. Now, we have faithfully tried to carry out that charge. If the House wants to change its mind, if it wants to engage in what is called full disclosure, that's perfectly acceptable to me. But that was not the direction that we had. In terms of...
Let me pick you up on that, though, because you will have a vote along with all the other congressmen sometime later this week. Will you vote for or against full disclosure?
I will vote against full disclosure because it's not equal disclosure. First of all, we do not have complete information on many of the accounts on the list of 355. Many of those accounts only had a few bad checks. 133 members had 5 or fewer checks. These are private transactions. If a member of Congress did nothing wrong, if he didn't abuse his banking privileges, and most people would agree 5 checks over 39 months is not abuse, then why should these private transactions be spread out on the public record? It seems to me that we're treating congressmen different than everybody else.
Well, let me ask, first of all, I suppose one of the answers to that would be that congressmen are different from everyone else, but let me ask Senator Proxmire, do you think that members of Congress enjoy some right to privacy here? Do you think there should be either this partial disclosure of only the 24 worst offenders, or do you think that we should find out about every congressman?
Well, there's an easy answer. The easy answer is that you ought to have full disclosure. If you write one bad check, it should be known. You can explain that to your constituents. If you can't, you probably aren't likely to be reelected anyway. So it seems to me that the only answer that makes any sense at all is to have full disclosure. There are all kinds of ways in which you could have full disclosure. One way you could do it is simply to tell write a letter to every single member of the House and say whether he's clear, whether he's had a check bounce or 10 checks bounce or 50 checks bounce, and then let the local newspaper, the local TV station, the local radio station call him up. Say, okay, Buster, what's your record? Reveal it. You have it. And if you don't have it, then it seems to me that his opponent would have every reason in the world to raise the dickens about it and to probably defeat him.
Well, let's bring in Mike Barnicle, who's one of those pesky reporters who'd be calling up and calling a congressman Buster. Mike, do you think that with this election coming up in a few months, do you think that the House can get away with just naming 24, or do you think that all the names are going to come out?
Oh, well, look, Buster, I think probably all the names will eventually come out. The problem is exactly as Bill Proxmire just explained it. I mean, if a congressman is popular and substantial in his own district, he or she can explain 4 or 5 bounce checks. I mean, I have great sympathy for anyone who kites a check. Having stood in the dock of Boston Municipal Court several years ago before I made any money and having to answer to a charge of larceny over $100, which is what they call a bounce check in this jurisdiction, is what they would call it in Washington. You've got to get it out there, or else people are going to mistake the House of Representatives for the local House of Correction.
Congressman McHugh, let me clear up a couple of details in this scandal, if I might. Could spouses of members of Congress write checks on their accounts?
Yes, they could, Chris. A member of Congress could authorize a spouse or a staff member to sign checks.
And in fact, did some of the spouses of members of Congress write these bad checks that we're talking about here?
Yes, I'm sure they did, because a number of members have told me that was the case.
Let me ask you another question. There has been some issue as to whether or not these bad checks, since they were paid by the House Bank, whether they constitute interest-free loans and thereby income for which the congressman would be liable. What did you find on that?
We asked our legal counsel to research that question, and an overdraft is technically a loan, but he told us that these overdrafts do not represent the kind of interest foregone situations which would require reporting on income taxes. And let me quickly add that no interest was paid to members of Congress that had surpluses in their accounts. In my case, for example, I had surpluses and we never got paid interest, which is what the average constituent would be paid at their local bank.
Chris, let me just interrupt to put this into a broader perspective. The fact is that members of Congress now get $129,500 a year. That's a tremendous pay. No, not more than 1 or 2% of the American people get anything like that. It's far, far too big. You also have a doctor and free prescription drugs. You have all kinds of other advantages, including having a newsletter that costs over $1 million a year. The fact is that the taxpayer pays $3.5 million for every single member of Congress, including his salary.
Yeah.
Now, that is just too much, and under those circumstances, it seems to me that the least that members of Congress could do is to reveal whether or not they bounce checks or not. And anybody with $129,500 a year doesn't have to bounce a check and shouldn't. Ought to be ashamed if he does.
Let me break in, Mike Barnacle, let me break in here just for a moment because we do have to take a pause. But when we return, I want to ask you all about the institution of Congress and what happens when so many voters start saying that it is out of touch. And we'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Recently, DuPont announced that its energy unit Conoco would pioneer the use of new double-hulled oil tankers in order to safeguard the environment. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. DuPont, better things for better living.
This is really true. Every day more people find out it is true. Real people really win at Publishers Clearinghouse.
Oh, my God.
You could win $10 million if you enter the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes fast.
Thank you, Jesus.
I'm alive, William Hines.
I'm alive, Michael Hines.
For a free list of cars with airbags, see your Allstate agent.
The top 100 most excellent things to do. Number 12.